Hey miners, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be building a rig for a friend of mine. He went ahead and purchased all this stuff behind me, and we're going to show you how we put it together. We're going to have a fun time with this. I also want to say thank you to all of our veterans out there. I appreciate everything that you guys have done. Your sacrifice has made everything we have in America and take for granted possible. So I appreciate all of your guys' sacrifices and everything you guys have done. Just a good shout out to the vets out there. Thank you for everything you've done. Let's go ahead and get on to this project and have some fun today. All right, just to break down what we're going to do today, we're going to go ahead and use this Z390UD gigabyte motherboard. That's going to be what we're going to run our rig off of. We're going to power it with a Pentium Gold processor. And we have 6 of the RTX 2060s that we're going to set up on this rig, and going to have a lot of fun doing this, so stay tuned. Alright, I'm going to pull the motherboard out here. So it's very important that you make sure that you don't have any static electricity built up on yourself, or else you can shock, with static electricity, shock your motherboard and wreck it. So along with making sure that your body doesn't have any electromagnetic charge, you also want to make sure that the bottom of your motherboard isn't going to touch the bottom of your rig, the metal. So the rig frame should come with some little brass standoffs so that it holds your motherboard up off of the frame. And it should go over the big open slot, obviously for airflow. So the frame is going to have a number of different holes for these little standoffs, but you need to put them in the ones that match your motherboard. So with the anti-static bag, you want to just set this on your frame and see where those holes line up, and then go ahead and put those standoffs on. Alright, so on our motherboard, there's a number of things we want to add to this motherboard before we actually attach to the rig. It's going to make it a lot easier for you. We do want to put in our CPU in here, and we want to make sure we get our fan attached to our CPU. That way we're not having to deal with that while it's on the rig. It makes it a little more difficult. So let's go ahead and do that. So on your CPU, there's going to be little notches on one part of it, and there's a little arrow on one of the corners. Make sure that you're putting these in properly, or else you're going to damage the CPU, and it's going to cost you a lot of money to buy a new one. So if it doesn't just slip right on there, it's the wrong one. You have to verify with the motherboard you're purchasing that you have a compatible CPU. And once you set this on there, you're just going to set it right in place. It falls right into place. You don't have to put a lot of pressure on it. Close the cover, and when you're locking this in, that little plastic piece should just pop right off. Like that. Our CPU is now installed. So we're going to go ahead and install the fan now. One of the things with the fan is usually the fan's going to have a little thermal paste on the bottom of the fan. And that's to connect, it actually attaches, that thermal paste will connect to your CPU, and it's going to transfer the heat a lot better into the fan wings, the aluminum fan wings, so that it can actually disperse the heat a lot quicker. So one of the things you need to watch for as well is on here, you have to find out where does your fan actually plug in, because there's got to be a plug. So right down here it says System Fan 1. Over here it says CPU fan. So that's where we want to plug in our CPU fan. Not to the system fan, but to the CPU. going to go ahead and install our RAM. So what we have here is two 8 gig of memory, and so we'll go ahead and put those in. On every motherboard, you got to be a little bit careful where you install your RAM. Obviously, here's our 4 slots for our RAM. On the motherboard, typically it's going to tell you which ones you want installed first. So you can see that there's pairs that are color coded. So you got 2 of these gray ones and 2 of the black ones. So we have to look and see which 2 get filled first, because there is a 1, 2, 3, 4 order. Alright, on Amazon they have these little solid state drives that are really, really cheap, and they're very easy. They already got the holes, so you can just attach those wherever you want on your rig. It's basically to put Windows on and a couple little apps as you're running things. Alright, so for our power supply, we went ahead and got the Corsair, the HX 1200. This is a really, really good power supply for doing smaller rigs. I know there's a lot of other power supplies out there that'll cost you a lot of money, and if you're doing big scale or always changing what you're doing on your rig, these are very reliable. I appreciate these. I like them a lot. So this is what we're going to be putting on this rig. Alright, so right now we got the power supply set up. We went ahead and put on our power switch. We have the RAM put in there, we have the fan, the CPU, we have the solid state drive attached and powered up. And now we get to do the fun part and put our GPUs onto our rig. All right, so we got all the wires plugged in. We got everything powered. We have our USB to our risers. They're plugged in currently on the motherboard. We're going to unplug those when we first fire this up and set up the BIOS for this motherboard, and then we'll plug them all back in. But we got our little power switch attached. Everything should be set up now, so we should be able to take this as it is and plug in our monitor, keyboard, and mouse and get things fired up and start making some money. All right, guys, so we got everything set up. We went ahead and hooked up our monitor, our keyboard, our mouse. I got a USB with Windows 10 on it that we're going to boot to. We're going to go ahead and fire this up so I can show you how to set up the BIOS on this motherboard, and we will get mining. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and hit my power button here, and hopefully all the fans turn on. Awesome, all the fans are on and they're spinning, ready to work for us. So we're going to hit delete to enter our BIOS setting. So when I hit delete on this to enter the BIOS setup. All right, so now we're in our BIOS setup. So in here is where you want to make some critical settings to turn this into a mining rig. I assume that's what you want to do, and that's why you're watching this video. So this is what we're going to focus on, is making this a mining rig. A couple critical settings we want to do is when you first come in here, make sure that your RAM is being recognized. So we put in 16 gig of RAM, and there it's showing there's 16 gig there. So that's a plus. Then come over to the advanced mode. Under the advanced mode, this is where you're going to make some other changes. So I want you to go to settings, IO ports, and then in IO ports, one of the very important things is hopefully you have a CPU that has internal graphics. If not, you're going to have to use one of your GPUs as your graphics, and that might affect your mining ability, your hash rate. So in here, internal graphics is set on auto. So if I was to leave this, that means that it's going to see there's a graphics card attached, and it's going to want me to run my display through that. Well, I want this to stay on the CPU graphics, so I'm going to say we're going to leave it enabled, that we're using the internal graphics on this. All right, so that's set to enabled. Next, you want to go to the audio controller. Now, most people just disable this because it just uses up more memory. Above 4G coding, that is very important that you make sure to enable that. That's going to allow you, that'll allow your motherboard to recognize all of the GPUs that you have on your motherboard, or else it will only recognize a couple of them if you have that disabled. All right, next we want to go to boot. We scroll down a little bit. Under storage, boot option control, and other PCI devices, make sure that these are both set to UEFI. And then you should be all set to go. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save and exit. So I'm going to save and exit the BIOS, making all the changes that we made. And then it should boot up to the USB device that I have plugged in to install Windows. If you don't have a Windows activation key, that's fine. Just say you don't have a key. And then what you're going to want to do is go ahead and click on Windows 10 Pro. Later on you can register it, or you can keep running it unregistered as long as you're not making any personalized things within Windows, like changing the background or different things like that. You're able to run your rig just fine off of the unregistered Windows 10 Pro version. Accept the license. So this is asking if we are upgrading the current Windows system, or are we doing a custom install for advanced. So I always do the custom install. I say I'm going to send it to my SSD, and now it's going to install Windows. want to turn all of these off to make your computer run as fast as possible. Now that we're logged into Windows, we know we're all set here. What we do need to do is we need to go back and turn off our rig, plug in all of the risers into the motherboard, and then fire it back up and make sure that that works. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to shut this down. Alright guys, so we went ahead and we were having some issues. We didn't have enough RAM on this rig, it looks like, so only 4 of our GPUs are coming up. We went ahead and downloaded the drivers. You can always go to Device Manager. Up here, Display Adapters, and here it shows 4 of our 2060s are being shown right now. So those should be good to go. What we're going to do is we're going to run gminer to start mining Ethereum. So in gminer, and I can put a link down below on where you can download it, we're going to go to the Ethereum bat file. I'm going to hit edit, and here we have our miner exe. We're going to do the ET hash algorithm. We're going to connect to the 2 miners. Here's the receiving destination of where this the coin's going to go to, and our name. So we should be all set there. You can right click and hit run as administrator, or you can just open it up. And right there it says it recognizes the 4 GPUs. It's generating the DAG. We're going to go ahead and see what we got running. And this is right out of the box. We have not overclocked anything yet. And in order to overclock them, we will get MSI Afterburner on here and get that set up. So passed all DAGs. And now it should officially be mining. Let's watch it for a minute and see what hash rate we have right out of the box. It's going to start off with 25.88 mega hash a second, and that's at 132, 135, right in that range of power, which we can definitely do much better with that when we overclock it. But I'm going to let it run for just a minute and see where it goes from there. Alright, so we let it run for a little bit. Here it looks like we're getting just under 26 mega hash. At about 135-ish watts for these. We found 6 shares. This is right out of the box. There's no overclocking, so I'm going to go ahead and download MSI Afterburner. We'll do some overclocking and we'll see what we get from there. Alright, so we went ahead and downloaded MSI Afterburner. We have these 4 GPUs running. Right now they're running about 31 mega hash each. 125 watts, so that efficiency is about 250 kilohash a watt, and so that's actually pretty good for these 2060s. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments below.